This is Gerardo Del Real with Resource Stock Digest. Joining me today is one of the most successful in bear and bull markets, one of the most successful contrarian investors in the resource space. I'm here with Mr. Jeff Phillips. Jeff, how are you today?
Thanks for having me, Gerardo. I'm doing great. Getting ready to leave for the PDAC, Prospector and Developers Association conference here in Toronto.
Well, listen, I'm sure with these markets, it's going to be a busy one. Look, gold and silver, rightfully so, has been the belle of the ball. They've been the bells of the ball here in 2026 and late 2025. But more and more, I'm getting to see a lot of, if you want to call it the smart money and even the contrarian money, coming in pretty robustly into the copper space. And I just had a really good conversation with Joe Mazumdar from Exploration Insights, and we talked a bit about copper and the structural deficits there. And I thought, what better person to have on than, again, one of the more successful contrarian investors ever in this space? That'd be you. I would love to hear your take on copper and just where you think we are in that bull cycle. I know that gold and silver, rightfully so, have gotten the bulk of the attention, but I think there's a good case to be made there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm not sure I'm one of the most successful, and I've done all right, Gerardo. So anyway, but thank you for that introduction. Yeah, I'm a again, you've done interviews with me before. I like I think metals at this point we're in for a lot of the metals doing well for many reasons. But as far as copper goes, I think that it's a pretty simple scenario. You can listen to a lot of people that have recently done interviews, whether it be Rick Rule, who did a fantastic one the other day on copper, or Frank Giustra did a really good interview about the copper fundamentals. But, I'm a simple guy. So keeping it simple, we basically have a under exploration problem. The estimates at this point are that copper production, the supply is going to go down by 2040 by 36%.
Mm.
And on the other hand, with all of the different, you've got the industrial demand, which has always been there and is growing as more countries enter. Countries like India and China keep to upgrade their citizenships and need more copper for basic things from toasters to bicycles to everything else. You've also got a build out of the power grid, electric vehicles, AI data centers. So they're projecting that we'll need 90% more copper by 2040 than we have today. And remember what I said before, that production's going down by 36% on the same date. So yeah, you have a supply problem coming. Copper demand's always increasing as the world becomes more industrialized in different parts of the world. But on top of that, you've got a copper demand scenario that's going to increase more than normal. So, and again, so that in a regular cycle, you have under investment in the space, under exploration. And the cure to that is higher copper prices, then people explore more. But the difference now is that the demand is so, I mean, I've seen some numbers where, in the next 20 years, I think we'll have to produce as much copper as we have in the entire history of the world, something like that. I mean, that's
Yeah.
crazy. So, and then you throw in the geopolitical risks that we have now, which makes this bull market different. And what's really critical is a lot of these, a lot of the coppers produced in South America, I forget the percent, but the new discoveries there are way down. And some of the copper mines that are coming into production or being explored are in countries that aren't exactly friendly, places in Africa. And obviously, China finding a copper deposit or Russia doesn't really help us. So you're seeing the U.S. government put, copper is now a critical metal. They're fast tracking, like they did in Arizona recently, a
Correct.
copper mine. So again, I think if you look at the supply demand fundamentals of copper, it looks very good through 2040. Again, there'll be hiccups along the way, but copper prices have to be higher. And really, you want to find stuff in safe jurisdictions.
You've known me, you've known me for almost 20 years, now almost 2 decades, going on 18 years, Jeff. And you know that it's one thing to own the metal, right? It's one thing to own copper. But my favorite way to play it is the leverage that the equities provide. And me, I'm wired for high risk and high reward. I really love the explorers and the developers. Are there any explorers or developers out there right now that you like in the junior space or even majors or mid tiers?
Yeah, I mean, most people, if they believe in copper and believe in the copper fundamentals, need to be looking at a bigger copper company. Some of the producing copper companies on the New York Stock Exchange are the big board in Toronto. There's a number of them. Freeport obviously comes to mind as a very large copper production company. A lot of these companies are producing other metals too, but Freeport's associated with copper. You've got smaller companies like Hudbay that are producing. So these are the companies that, a generalist or someone just, again, the space that you play in and that I play in is a very high risk space. A lot of these companies don't
Hmm.
have much of the underlying metal they're talking about. They're exploring for it, or if they do, they're trying to prove what they have is either bigger or could be economic. There's a lot
Sure.
of things that go into this. So I'm really on the front end of the curve, higher risk. You've heard me do interviews before. I typically have a dozen stocks that I'm a very large shareholder, and I consult for these companies. Some people call it, an activist investor. I call it parental supervision. So, again, these are small companies, but again, you're hoping to see them raise capital at higher prices. They either make their discovery or improve the discovery they've made. So again, this isn't investment advice for people. This is more for people that are already understand the junior resource and developer exploration development space. But yeah, last year I did a deal in a what they call a prospect generator. And I'll explain that in a second. But again, you've done interviews with me before. The two important things I look for in a company are people and share structure. I sound like a broken record. So, there's a company that I financed last year called Concora Copper. It's a prospect generator. They do not actually have copper in the ground. They're looking for copper gold porphyries in Australia. They actually have a project in Mongolia also. But this company was a company that for, a number of years was exploring, again, when it comes to people, they had some of the best people in the business. They had the ex-Newcrest geologists who just discovered stuff for Newcrest like Cadia.
Yeah.
I think it's called, I can never get the name right. I can't think of the other deposit right now, but major mines that had before Newcrest was acquired. Some of those projects that never got drilled ended up in Concora, and you've got these guys that are major mine finders. That's what they do. They found tens and tens of billions of dollars in
Yeah.
assets. So, Concora originally was a company that went out and drilled projects, but again, that gets expensive. And when you're looking for a copper porphyry, and the markets weren't great in 2021, 2020, that era. So they spent a lot of money drilling their projects. They switched to a prospect generator model, a year and a half, 2 years ago, which is instead of drilling and continually raising money, you bring in partners to fund that drilling. And they did a remarkable job last year. And
Yeah.
studying the company, bringing in partners to drill those projects again they're looking for elephants. They're not looking for little things to rehash. They're not looking for roadkill on the road to rehash it in these
Yeah.
better metal markets. They're looking for something meaningful. They're big game hunters. They found it before. So I ended up restructuring the deal. We restructured the stock. We rolled it back, and I financed it. I was one of the lead orders. A number of people came in. That Rick Rule was the other lead order. Your listeners probably recognize Rick Rule's name, who
Yeah.
is a legend in the business, and has helped me out a lot over my 30-year career. But other people came into that financing. Guys like Bob Bishop, who used to write a newsletter, very respected newsletter writer who's retired. Brian London, who's with Gold Newsletter and the Gold Conference in New Orleans. You know, uh, so again, you've got a lot of people there in a company that's been restructured, and I think 60% of Concora, they only have 43 million shares out. I think 60% of the company's either held by insiders fully reporting, or the stock's locked up
Yeah.
at people who came in with me's requests that we want to give the company time to develop their assets. So even today, the company has probably a $45 million Canadian market cap, maybe a $50 million Canadian market cap. So again, and most of those shares are either with insiders or locked up. Then you look at, other things. Brett Cook, who's used to write Exploration Insights and was the lead geologist for Rick Rule for a number of years, 15, 20 years ago, very respected in the industry, sits on the advisory board. Um, but what's really interesting there is they switched their model, and now, like I said, they have 42 million shares out, and they've got something like 8 projects joint ventured out, $110 million in potential project funding, drilling those projects. Their main joint venture right now is with Anglo, which is a major mining
Yeah.
company. Um, I think they spent $3.5 million and like what they saw last year in a massive area of the Macquarie Arc, which again, what they're looking for are these the same things these geologists found when they were with Newcrest that were exposed. They're looking undercover. The geology doesn't change undercover. It gets more difficult to find.
Sure.
Hence why you want a big partner with with a big budget. So Anglo, I think it was just announced a couple of weeks ago. Anglo's they've begun drilling again with Concora. Concora operates that program, gets a 10% fee. I think they've doubled the amount they're going to spend this year on the project. They're drilling now. That will go on throughout the year. They have another 6 projects joint ventured out. They have their own gold project that they will be drilling the next couple of months. It's sort of a hybrid prospect generator. They are keeping one of their projects to drill the gold project. So I really like Concora Copper. Again, I'm not saying that it's the only copper stock you should own, but
Yeah, that's a lot of shots on goal right there.
yeah, it's a lot of shots on goal. It's a sub $50 million market cap. And what interests me in this market right now, because I'm seeing all these companies, the stocks have really run, right? And I'm
Yeah.
100 million, 120 million. I was
Yeah.
stunned the other day. I looked at 2 companies I haven't looked at in 6 months, and I still don't really like them that much. And they've gone from, shit, one's a $160 million market cap. Yeah, they've got some drill holes and everything else, but that's, the market caps are getting up there. So when you look at Concora, even the 2 projects they have that aren't yet joint ventured out to a major, which I think they will accomplish this year, those were their flagship projects when they
Yeah.
were drilling their own projects. Some of the drill results they had back, 5, 6 years ago in this market would be received very well, but the market was very different 5 years ago. So again, these projects that aren't even joint ventured out have me excited, and I think they will joint venture those out. And in this market, I think if they were drilling those 2 projects like they did 5 years ago, they'd have a bigger market cap than they do now. So I think Concora has a lot of shots on goal. The CEO, Sam, is a workaholic.
Yeah.
That's what you want to see. So again, people, made big discoveries, share structure, great share structure, and they're looking for a real prize. I mean, if they find, it's high risk, but again, people like Anglo have had all their geologists look at this stuff and say,
Yeah.
yeah, we want to spend a lot of money on this, and they're doing it now. So, fingers crossed. I think they'll have more joint ventures, but I think Concora Copper is a very interesting play.
Excellent. One more before you go.
There's a bunch off the top of my head. Again, I own shares in Concora. I consult for them. This isn't investment advice.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know what your portfolio looks like. And again, if you don't know the junior resource market, don't buy anything in it. Go do some research first to see what the risk level, and talk to a financial planner or a newsletter writer or a broker that understands the space. But if you wanted another pick, Concora is a $50 million market cap. Well, there's a couple of them, but I guess Gladiator Metals.
Mhm.
Gladiator Metals is, in the Whitehorse up in the Yukon district. It's a past producing district. Hud Bay produced there back, I think, in the 80s, smaller
Yep.
mines.
Yep.
They've re-put that district back together. Again, when you talk about people and share structure, that company went public 3 years ago. They've always raised money at higher prices. That's what you want to see as
Yeah.
a shareholder. There's a large insider ownership. The people who vended the project are the Coin brothers. Very important because they own a worldwide drilling company. They put this district back together. They vended it to Gladiator. They are the major shareholders. They are also the drilling company that's been doing all the drilling on their successful drilling on their projects over the last 18 months. They're also members of the First Nation,
Mm.
the First Nations that are over this area. So there's a good relationship there. But I think that's an entire, right now in the copper space, it's a safe jurisdiction. I think their Cowley Park, which is their flagship
Yep.
asset there that hadn't been mined by Hud Bay, they've got, I think they've put in over 100 holes and over 250 holes already there. And I suspect when they come out with a resource, that's going to be 1 to 1.5% copper equivalent near surface, open pittable.
Mm.
So, again, their market cap right now, I think they're about $1.10 Canadian, is, 120 million Canadian or something like that. But most importantly, again, people and share structure, they are probably going to, I believe they will have their class 3 drill permit here in the next 30 days. They are fully funded to run a 30,000 meter drill program. Last year, they couldn't drill all the spots they wanted to, and they've identified quite a few others based on new geophysics and some other new tools that they've used looking at the older deposits plus their Cowley. They drilled one of those last year. They hit 5 for 5. They could only drill 5 holes. So once they get that class 3 permit, which I think is coming, you're going to see a lot of drilling. That's the kind of company I can see, again, you saw the recent takeout of Foran, which was mining, which was taken out by Eldorado at 3.8 billion further along. But
Sure.
what was that? 40 million tons at 2% underground, which is more expensive. So if I was really looking at a copper company in a safe jurisdiction, something that, again, I'm only looking at things you know, Kincor is different because they're looking for a
Right.
billion dollar, tens of billions of dollar asset. And but with something like Gladiator, I think you already have that asset. I think that asset can be re-rated, um, you know, quite a bit more than it trades at now. And with some exploration success with its 30,000 meters of drilling, adding some of these other targets, that really has some growth potential. Again, those would be two companies that you should do your due diligence on.
There you go, folks. Jeff Phillips on the structural deficits in the copper market and two picks that he personally has skin in the game with and large holdings and like he said, not investment advice, and he consults for the companies and obviously is biased, but definitely worth your due diligence. Anything to add to that, Jeff?
Yeah, it's going to be a wild PDAC. I suspect there'll be everybody that's ever been there. These conferences have gotten ridiculous in this bull market. Just be careful, know what you're investing in, know the risks in the junior resource space. Again, I'm not giving investment advice. I'm just talking about what I like and why I like it, and be meeting with both those companies plus 2 dozen other ones while I'm up there. But do your due diligence and always follow the rule, man. Look at what the people have done before and look at the share structure, and not just how many shares are outstanding. How much does management own? The board, fully reporting. I want to see a quarter of those companies fully reporting. I think even in Glad, both those companies have over 25% insider ownership plus other stock locked up.
Sure.
So I want to see that. I also, again, you want to see who the other shareholders are. So what is their time frame? So in both those companies, I believe the shareholders are very serious players that aren't making look dimes and quarters or looking for billion-dollar assets. So that's what you're shooting for.
Well said. There you go, folks. Mr. Jeff Phillips. Appreciate the time as always, Jeff.
Thank you, Gerardo. I appreciate it also.
Hey everybody, Gerardo Del Real here. If you're enjoying the content that you just saw, you can let us know in 3 simple steps. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and please share across your network and on social media. Take care, everybody.